Um, Thank you, Rebecca, for that warm welcome. So as she was mentioning, if you don't know already, my name is Teddy, and I am an English major on the pre-medicine, pre-professional track. And as an English major, I get to read a lot of stories, okay? Now, this is good because I love stories. I love to devour stories in any format. You have it in book, movies, TV. It's just, they're all great. I can read, watch, review any of them, right? The more I think about this, the more I feel like I can't be the only one that feels this way about stories, right? If you look at society, you see that we're surrounded by stories, and it's because we're so naturally attracted to them, right? Now, what I want to explore today is what exactly makes a good story. What is the formula, so to speak, of these stories that we consume? What is it about stories that we are so attracted to them? You know, there's several answers to that, but the one I want to focus on today is the section called the climax. The climax is defined as the section after the rising action, where the action is at its highest point. It is here where we experience the most amount of tension, and it is here where the characters have to face the obstacle that is preventing them from reaching their main goal. Now, that main goal, in and of itself, in various different forms, is a complete narrative arc. So in other words, before the climax, the character is flawed and incomplete. The climax then forces them to develop and grow outside of their comfort zone, pushing them beyond their limits and experiencing a transformation. Put simply, the climax provides an opportunity for growth. So you can see how a good climax is important for a good story because it sets the tone for how the characters and the ending will turn out. To give you an example of how important a good climax is, let's consider a movie that is lauded for its storytelling, Toy Story. In the climax of the movie, Woody and Buzz are left behind by Andy at a gas station, and they get into an argument. At this point, Buzz still believes that he is a space trooper from outer space and that he's here to terminate the evil Emperor Zurg, and Woody is saying that he is out of his mind for believing such a thing and a fanatic, and he hits him with the harsh remark that they are just toys. What ensues is our climax, our point of high tension and high emotion. If we were to watch it, you would see how the action is at its highest point between all the characters, right? Woody and Buzz cannot be misunderstanding each other more at this point. They are stretched to the fullest extent that we have ever seen them. Now, again, that's not necessarily a bad thing because they can resolve this conflict and reconcile with each other and emerge from this conflict more resolute towards their goal. And we know the outcome. Toy Story is now lauded as one of the most defining movies of friendship. Now, an interesting thing about Toy Story is that it went through several drastic changes before reaching its final product. Woody was actually supposed to be the villain. Now, I don't know, I feel like Woody as a villain would not have been as effective because, hearing harsh words coming out of someone's mouth is much more impactful when it's coming from a friend rather than someone you see as a villain, right? Like, we can't imagine evil Emperor Zurg saying those same things to Buzz and having it the same effect. This is good that Toy Story made this decision because they paid attention to and invested in a good climax, and our characters push themselves beyond their limits, growing in a way that satisfies us as an audience. We say, wow, that was a good story. So in explaining all of this to you, all I'm trying to say is that a story is only as strong as the climax that it presents. Why? The climax of a story doesn't necessarily have to be emotionally driven, as we were about to see in the video, but it can also be physical and violent. And right now, just as in the climax of the story, our society is in the midst of heavy tension and high conflict. Look around you. What do you read on the news? We see clashes between many areas of personhood. We see clashes in race surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement and white supremacy. We see clashes in gender and politics surrounding rape and sexual assault in response to the LGBTQ movement as well. We see it in between war-torn nations like Yemen and Syria. We see it in a house divided amongst itself in response to the regards of the Second Amendment. And we see it in our daily lives in those that are close to us who are hurt by these experiences. So my question is, when we find ourselves in this tension and fighting, what can we do? What is our solution? How may we respond to the cruelty and brutality that we exert on our fellow man? I, for one, say we rewrite the story, like the directors of Toy Story did. Andrew Stanton, the director, explained that a climax can go either one of two ways. The stress of the situation may bring the characters closer together than they ever were before, or it may splinter them apart forever. In this climax that we find ourselves in, what is the ending that we will choose? Will we refuse to reconcile with one another, choosing hatred and violence over love? Or will we gain a stronger bond amongst ourselves by exhibiting kindness, love, a hospitable hand? Recall that a climax provides an opportunity for growth. I believe that though the climate today we are in is depressing, it does provide an opportunity. I hope and I pray that instead of continuing to live in a fractured society, that we will emerge from this climax as stronger human beings and more complete. Because as we have heard, it is not too late. We can rework and edit stories. We don't have to accept a perennial bad ending, and this hate does not have to go on forever. We can work to change the outcome that we are headed towards simply by acting in kindness and love and hospitality in one another. We have the power. Because what makes a good story is not just the climax, but the author as well. Thank you.